Hello there. Do you ever listen to the radio and think to yourself, man, this new music is just not what it used to be? Or you think, music was just way better when I was growing up? Or the ubiquitous, kids these days, they don't know good music. And I mean, it's obvious why, right? You think about the classics like Led Zeppelin, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, and Elton John. They were just clearly superior and way more talented. Current artists like Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift, they just don't compare. You know, music had heart back then, and now it's all for the money, right? Or so it seems. Hi, my name is Mikhail Chernov, and I don't necessarily agree with that. And today I will present to you my view that maybe some of the newer stuff isn't so bad, and maybe some of the older stuff is a bit more fondly remembered than it actually was. You know, I hear this a lot from all sorts of people. A lot of times, you know, it's people who grew up during that era. But I also hear it from, you know, younger people too. You know, there's a whole community out there who say, you know, I was born in the wrong generation, and I wish I grew up less, you know, so I could see these guys live. And, you know, and a lot of that's possible now, you know, for younger people to listen to older music with how widespread YouTube and streaming services have become. People of any age can listen to music from any time period. I was one of those people. When I was in high school, I listened to a lot of classics from the 70s, 80s, 60s, whatever. You know, my favorite bands at the time, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, and David Bowie. But, you know, that being said, I never fully agreed with those statements. You know, that's not to say there's not bad music out there today, or that the stuff on the radio is better than, you know, all the classics I mentioned earlier. You know, what I want to talk about is there's a lot of great new music out there, but it goes unrecognized. And the idea that it's just not as good and worse than the stuff from back in the day, I think is flawed. And I will present kind of why I think that is. And the focus of that will be biases. You know, the ideas of rosy retrospection, survivorship bias, and how computer algorithms feed into that to paint a picture that might be different from what is in fact reality. You know, my ultimate goal is that you guys will listen to my speech and, you know, I will spark a newfound curiosity for you. You know, after you listen to me, you go on YouTube to search for new music, find a new favorite song, get a new favorite artist, go to their show and buy their merch. But if I don't change your mind convincingly, you know, if I just get you to think for a second, you know, before you say, you know, the new stuff sucks, well, that's a win for me. So let's go back in time a minute. Back in the day, you had some incredible bands, you know, as I previously mentioned, but you had some not good ones. As time goes on, we remember the good ones fondly and we forget the bad ones. That idea of nostalgia, the aforementioned rosy retrospection. While I was doing research for this topic, I found a website where someone gathered data on Spotify to see why certain songs were more popular than others. And I will post the link for that in the end credits. To very quickly summarize, the conclusion was that people stop listening to newer music around age 30-35. You know, when you're growing up, you know, you form a connection with the music you grew up with. And when you get older, the newer stuff just hits differently. And not because it's really inherently worse, but because it's hard to have the emotional space in your brain for newer things. You know, adults' lives are busy and really stressful, and there's comfort to be found after a long day in the familiarity of your favorite songs. Listening to newer stuff can be hard. And on the flip side, we conveniently forget the duds, which is an example of survivorship bias. According to Wikipedia, survivorship bias is the logical error of concentrating on entities that passed the selection process while overlooking that those did not, which leads to a inconcrete conclusions because of incomplete data. And I'd like to bring up an example of that from the 90s. So we talk about 90s music, and it's remembered fondly quite a bit, and it's considered classic now. And when I looked up on Google what was the #1 single from the 90s, and it brought up "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana, and I think Nirvana was they defined that era, and it's a lot of people's favorites, and for good reason. It's an absolute amazing song, classic. But what people forget was that they weren't really that popular on the billboards. And the stuff that was popular on the radio and on the billboards at the time was completely different. To kind of show what I'm talking about, I present to you a billboard from 1991 of the most popular songs. And that was the year that Nirvana's most popular album, Nevermind, was released. So as you can see, actually Nirvana is nowhere to be found. And as I look through the list, a lot of the songs I don't think I've ever heard of. So the reason I brought this up was because I wanted to reiterate the point that what's considered good in retrospect and what's popular in radio at the time, a lot of times is different. But that's also been true for a long time. I find a lot of cool hidden gems on SoundCloud, on YouTube.com. There's some cool stuff. Anthony Fantano is a music critic, and his channel, The Needle Drop, has some great recommendations. There's always something trending on TikTok. Local concert venues have some cool lineups going ahead. I think the Armory for Stab in downtown and the Myth in St. Paul have some fun concerts coming up. RateYourMusic.com is a great resource to find what the music critics like. And then there's music festivals. Coachella is being live streamed on YouTube right now. And I think they have a really good lineup that you can see. I suggest look up some of these guys. Who knows, you might be surprised. Yeah, so in conclusion, I hope what we talked about today helped you become more aware of, maybe some of the newer music isn't so bad. It's hard to gain exposure for newer artists, compared to what's popular. But also, that's been the case for a long time, and it was true even when some of our favorite classic artists were, getting popular. So now that you've heard my case, I hope I've convinced you to give a new artist a listen. Or maybe you think new music is still terrible, and that's okay too, but just pay closer attention, Think, is this really that bad? Or is my memory just playing some tricks on me? Thank you, and have a wonderful day.